Winspiration, the way to the essential. On UK Health Radio, Winspiration brings wisdom and information for an extraordinary future. Together, we can shape the world we want to live in. So let's get real and create the idea. Be extraordinary. Welcome to another episode of Winspiration Radio, and today for sure we bring you a lot of wisdom and information how you can create for yourself an extraordinary future, or we all together can create something better for this world, the planet, and our way of living. And my guest is very experienced and not just knowing, really a wise person, as Dr. Bruno Roque Cignacco. I hope I pronounce it somehow right.
Yes, it's right. Thank you.
And he is a professor. He studied metaphysics for whatever, now it's 20 years or so. Wrote a lot of books. Is teaching, consulting, and every day developing himself and bringing wisdom to clients. I met him years ago in London, and we talked about one of his books, How to Become a Miracle Worker in the life. So it was more about Ho'oponopono techniques and what I was going to say, individual development. And his latest book, that is more about how you really develop companies which are more human-orientated. So just the 180-degree difference for most companies using people for their profit, and now really how do we solve problems for people who are living there. So it's an interesting journey. And I'm very grateful that you took the time. I know you're very busy, and so we needed also pick an evening in your UK time. You're located in London, and I'm happy that you could take the time. So just for the beginning, do you like to add something for the introduction?
Thank you very much for your invite. I feel very honored to be here, and thank you again for giving me this opportunity to talk about my books and my ideas. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Coming just to the question from books, and if I read it, and we met with this for the miracle worker, it was for the individual, and you wrote a book about attracting money and a lot of other stuff. So attracting money, then the miracle worker, and now you're more in the business world, writing and teaching. Is this also a kind of personal history, development? Coming, I look first for the money, then I understood more, and then the miracles, and now we need to go really to communities?
Yes. There is not a transition, but there are two paths that go in parallel. So since I was a child, I have been reading on personal development, metaphysics, spirituality, and this was a path that continued until now, and I keep on reading on these topics. But also in my 20s, I started teaching at university and also start researching on marketing. Became specialized in international marketing. I started doing at that moment consultancy activities on international marketing and also on international strategy. And I work as a consultant for all these last 3 decades, but with more periods that are much more workload, more clients, and a period that were much more focused on research. So intermittent periods of research and consultancy activities. Over the years, I observed also that many companies were focused only on strategies and tactics and all these tools to get better result, economic result. Most companies were using the traditional business model that is focusing on profit, what I call quantitative aspect of a business, which include profitability, productivity, efficiency. But what I observe is that there is a second type of companies that they are at the forefront. They are very innovative, and they don't focus only on quantitative aspect of business, profit, market share, and so on. They focus also on qualitative aspects of business, for example, compassion, empathy, camaraderie, and so on. I wrote a couple of years ago, 10 years ago, a book on international marketing, but I didn't feel fully satisfied. And I thought that there could be another way to approach business, not only focusing on the economic aspects. I read an article around 8 years ago on, I read this in Harvard Business Review, that was the human touch, something like this, the human touch at work. And this author was talking about the importance of building strong bonds with employees, building strong bonds with the stakeholder, creating an emotional and mental connection with colleagues. And this surprised me because I haven't read so much about this, and I started researching on these topics for many years, around 3 years and a half. And this was coronated by my latest book, The Art of Compassionate Business, a main principle for the human-oriented enterprise, that was published in 2019, and now the second edition is coming out in 2023. And what I observed from my research, that there is a different way to do business that is generally counterintuitive. Why? Because many people focus on profits as the main result, as the most important objective. But if we analyze profit and market share and all these quantitative aspects, we have to understand that all these quantitative aspects can only be achieved with the participation of people. So this means that the building brick of any business activity is people. So if we do not care for people, we don't build a strong, long-lasting, mutually profitable relationship with these people. And what we are talking about when we talk about people: customers, employees, community members, suppliers. They are people. They are people that have their lives, their fear, their expectation, their hope. If we don't build strong relationship where the needs of both parties are satisfied, fully satisfied, well, it's very unlikely that this profit will be achieved, because this profit, this market share, are always the natural result of a strong, long-lasting relationship with stakeholders. So my view is very aligned with what we call the stakeholder theory. You don't care only for one type of a stakeholder, the shareholders, the owners of this company. You care for every single stakeholders. And you do not get one stakeholder getting all the wins at the expense of other stakeholders. You don't get the shareholder getting all the profit at the expense of paying miserly salaries to employees or at the expense of polluting the environment. You have to take into account in any business decision every single stakeholders. If the needs of these stakeholders are not satisfied, it's better to look for alternative decisions.
Yeah, I can totally agree, and like to explore a little bit more why you think it is like that. I simply can say it's like if you see the company also like a family, it's like if we would focus only that one family member is really focus on and the rest we don't care about, we don't get a happy family. And I could see it in Germany, especially also now in the pandemic. Those old not maybe old-fashioned, but long-lasting family companies, they have a totally different connection with their employees, even partly also over generations. And they didn't fire them. Okay, then we do something different, or I try to hold them. And after the World War, there were some entrepreneurs who says, "Oh, you can take my building, destroy the building, no problem. If I have my employees, we build always again."
Good.
Yeah, because
it makes sense.
Yeah, so that is really, and also with the profit. Now, this is a question: do we have enough profit if we go this way, or even more? But it's also, I wasn't sure what you meant with intuitive or counterintuitive, because I think it is against intuition just having the profit as a main focus. I don't that people are like this. We are trained like this, but not really wired. If I look my body, I need blood.
Yes.
But the meaning of life is not collecting blood. It's not.
I understand.
This thing is the same with the profit.
Yes, yes. And I agree with you because in practice, there are many principles that I discovered throughout my research that apply to business, but also apply to other type of relationship. For example, relationship with friends, families. For example, one important principle is the principle in business that is applied is interdependence. No company can succeed without the stakeholder. No company can succeed without employees, without customers, without community members, without suppliers, and without shareholders, investors. So this means that we need all of them, and we need on our side, not against us. Now imagine that you pay a miserly salary to an employee, and you pay this employee a very low salary, and you exploit them, and you make them work overtime, and you don't recognize their contribution. What do you expect this employee to do? To contribute more or to contribute less? Obviously, this employee will try to work by the book whenever possible and look for other job opportunities because they won't feel recognized and validated. So the principle is the principle of reciprocity. This means people are treating you in the way that you treat them. So it's like the golden rule that many spiritual philosophies talk about. How you want how you want you to be treated, but are you treating others in the same way? And if you treat others in a negative way, what do you expect? Obviously, a negative response. So this was studied by social psychology, and the principle of reciprocity always applies. You treat employees in a negative way, and obviously they will contribute very little or look for other job opportunity. You try to deceive customers, you try to take advantage of customers. This means win-lose. You win as a company and customer loses. This customer not only won't come back, but will leave negative reviews and will push other potential customer away. You pollute the environment and go against the communities, and communities might boycott your company. So this means that this applies for every single stakeholder. However you see company, you say that it's intuitive. However, even it's intuitive, I don't think so, but many companies are still using the traditional business model, which means profit. And in some cases, they use the approach of profit by all means. This means not taking into account the different stakeholders.
But what you're sharing is, can we say, look to politics the same, no? Like the Kaiser, the king squeezed the population, and a lot of people are lost. And you just mentioned you used the word traditional. Can we say, is it just a historic development? Like also, with some say now we have the new kids coming, have different brains and
different brains. Yes. I can comment briefly about this. So, for example, the traditional business model is focused on, for example, what we call scientific management, which implies using employees, trying for this employee to be efficient. The human side is not present. So this means that in some cases, companies, when they take this to the extreme, they try to treat employees as cogs in a machinery that can be replaced. The concept of human resources that is well used include the word resources, and resources are to be used and in some cases to be abused. I don't like the word human resources. I like the word people, and I like the word human capital, because employees are one of the most important stakeholders and need to be treated as individuals that have emotional needs, mental needs, social needs, spiritual needs, and companies try to focus only on the economic needs. We pay a fair salary and that's it. But they don't care so much what is going on with the emotional needs or social needs or mental needs or spiritual needs. And if you dismiss these needs, for example, emotional needs, they need to be recognized. They need to be validated. They need to be, for example, when the employee contributed to a very important project, well recognized publicly, maybe organizing an event. But many companies take employees' contribution for granted. And when employees they don't count. Yes.
Acknowledging this, like, could we say just Google makes a restaurant, makes a nice place, and the environment in the houses are different? Is this already really focusing and acknowledging, or is this just another trick to get more out of the people? So what is it really when you say you should acknowledge and focus all the needs of the employees?
Yes, because a very simple principle in any relationship, business or non-business one, is a relationship will be long-lasting when the needs of both parties are satisfied. So this is a very simple principle. It's common sense. However, you see many companies that are doing the opposite. They are satisfying their own needs, achieving their company objectives, but they are not meeting the needs of employees or customers, and then obviously they suffer from this. But also there is another point, briefly, I will highlight, that is all the business vocabulary is filled with words that imply confrontation. For example, a strategy comes from the military discipline, tactics, and so on. Beating competitors.
The officer comes from military.
Exactly. So the idea is that, well, if you use these terms, it's very difficult to build, for example, cooperative bonds. I believe a lot on cooperation, even cooperation with potentially rival companies. There are many cases of successful cooperation with rival companies. When you focus so much on competition, I don't say that competition is wrong. When you focus so much on competition, you try to focus on beating others, to outpace others, to be better. And this also can be driven by fear of losing the market share, fear of being beaten by others, and so on. Instead, cooperation has a different approach, has approach on affinity bonds, connecting to one another, complementing one another, sharing risks. So this is a completely, so I believe that the business vocabulary should be changed and using more vocabulary that is connected to words such as compassion, empathy, camaraderie, loyalty, that are more suitable for this new business model.
One part is the wording. Simply, we could say they play win-lose or lose-win, or sometimes even lose-lose, and win-win is not really in the focus. So when we are playing all the time this win-lose game, would you say, especially also with the other experience for individuals, is this all fear-based and the lack of that we're not yet there, that we can think in abundance?
Yes, I agree. I call this scarcity mindset. When you focus on win-lose, you are trying to beat others. It's like a sport competition or like a Olympics, that only one can win and the other one lose. But the idea is that there is a different approach that I call this abundance mindset that implies, well, how can we develop a business model where all people that are contributing directly or indirectly to our business objective can win? And this is more focused on what I call love. The scarcity mindset is focused on fear of, for example, losing the market share, fear of being deceived by employees, fear of not meeting the objectives. And when fear is driving a company, well, the company tend to use like a freeze, fight, fly mode, and this means that they're not people in this company. They're not thinking clearly. Instead, when people use the opposite approach, which implies prosperity mindset, win-win approach, you tend to experience positive emotion. And there is a lot of research in psychology and social psychology that when you experience positive emotion, for example, connected to, for example, affinity and empathy, compassion, gratefulness, and so on, you tend to think more clearly, more productively, more creatively, and you tend to develop strong bonds. You cannot develop strong bonds based on fear, but you can develop strong bonds based on love. I call love humanistic aspect of love, which include compassion, gratefulness, camaraderie, and so on.
Love which includes others and not only my company.
Exactly.
Balance sheet. I explain myself a little bit where we come from is, okay, we once maybe had a world view, there is only planet Earth. I only can survive if my cow has water or this, or I can only survive if I have enough cows. So if we think just planet Earth, we easily can think limited, and that's why we need to fight. It's my cow, it's my land. But we came also to information age, and today, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, all the rich people are not rich because they have the most cows. So this time is really over. Or when we see Elon Musk has the core belief that we are not just made for this planet, there are other planets. Why is it that, especially in the business world, there's still this limiting belief?
Well, these limiting beliefs come from traditional economics that observes that the world is full of scarce resources. But when we're talking about scarce resources, they were talking about the traditional resources like land and others. Yes. But we have to understand that there is a very unlimited resource that is only possessed by human beings, that is creativity. The book has 2 chapters on creativity and innovation, and I encourage my clients and students to become more creative and to study the different creative techniques, because creativity is the most important resource in any company. It's not human resource. Obviously, creativity comes from human beings, but the application, the practical application of creativity bring about new worlds, bring about new possibilities, bring about unexpected views of the world, because you go beyond what is known. You can visualize, you can, an expert says, you can shape the future. You don't expect the future to happen, but you can shape a different future and affect the future in a positive way. Instead, when you use only a traditional view of business, this means non-creative, well, you tend to do things by default, by conformity, always in the same way, and you don't tend to attempt any other alternative. The most interesting example that we can observe of creativity is companies like Uber or Airbnb. They are competing in a sector, in the case of Uber in the transport sector and the Airbnb in the hospitality sector, accommodation sector, and they're competing without possessing assets. Mm-hmm. This is not creative work, it's creativity. So they develop a business model based on networking that help them compete with the big transport companies and with the big accommodation companies respectively. So this means that creativity applied bring about new resources. So the creative skill generate new resources. And employees within a company, I call human capital, are the main creator of new resources. For the reason we have to care for them so much.
So creativity in this way needs also to be able, or going over the fear, to let go what were my old beliefs and so on.
Yes, because research has observed that when people feel fearful, they are less likely to be creative. A company that want to encourage creativity have to develop or encourage an environment that is playful, that people are allowed to make mistakes, that there is what we call psychological safety. When people are making mistakes, they're not penalized, but they're allowed to make mistakes because they know that by trial and error, you can get new ideas. So, and also companies that encourage risk, because no creative ideas guarantee positive results. But if you don't let them unfold, you will never have positive results.
Yes. I think this is the tricky thing, just looking from the psychology, that even a big boss was an old way, tradition way, successful, making a lot of money, not seeing that he is full of fear and just compensating with this, and that he can't really be creative and let go of this position. So a lot of them, I think, are really in a trap.
They're in a trap, and because of fear. And fear is a very common factor in most organizations. I call this fear-driven organization. Fear is so rampant and so prevalent in many organizations that many companies will never reach their potential because of fear. And fear has different aspects. Fear, for example, of making mistakes. Fear of being outpaced by colleagues. This is very common in the workplace. Yeah. All the politics, negative side of politics, one-upmanship, turf wars, or slandering, gossiping, but also fear of, for example, not achieving the objective, fear to be outpaced by competitor, or fear to be like deceived by employees. So it's countless version of fear, but in practice it's all the same. Not trusting in their own skills, not trusting others, not they're not willing to develop bonds with others. They don't understand also the concept of, for example, interdependence and reciprocity, but also they don't understand a basic principle. When you are fearful and you act in a fearful way, there is a phenomenon studied by some social psychologists and psychologists called emotional contagion. Emotional contagion is when you start feeling an emotion and you are interacting with people, you tend to infect this person with your emotion. And if you are fearful, the other person tends to perceive and even feeling your fear and acting accordingly. How many times we have seen in a company a boss that is getting in angry and talking to their employees. Employees were very calm before the boss was coming, and then the boss came angry and they started asking employees a question in a very aggressive way, and these employees became negative, experienced negative emotion. They were infected by this anger coming from the boss. The opposite happened with positive emotion. When you experience positive emotion, you can infect others with positive emotion, create a much more an environment that is focused on psychological safety, camaraderie, loyalty, support. So fear is never, obviously it's a natural mechanism of defense and of protection that make us evolve, but in practice, in most cases, fear is misplaced. This means that it's inappropriate and make us overreact, and in practice won't help us achieve our potential, unleash our potential, and also connect to others.
In sports, we see it also. Like in a soccer league, someone comes now new, the team comes new. There's a lot of trainers says, this goal for the season is not to leave the league, not to get out. Where others say we want to win. So it's always simple to focus. Fear is also energetically, law of attraction, whatever, with that what you don't want.
Yes, you focus on you don't want, and you act in a defensive way. You act in some cases, you constrain yourself. You don't harness your full set of resources, and you cannot be connecting to others because you are acting in a defensive way. How you can connect to others if you are in a defensive way? So this means that fear impairs temporarily your discerning skills, your creative skills, your critical analysis skills. So this means that people cannot think clearly. Why? Because they focus only on the threat. They try to defend themselves from the threat, and they give priority to the threat and nothing else.
And with the kind of thinking clearly, as we, most of also the top CEOs know, the quality of the question decides the quality of the answer, decides the quality of decisions. But if you only have then questions in mind how to survive, you never can ask the question, wow, how we can improve. We get always the wrong answers also.
Very good, very good. And I devoted in the book half a chapter on the importance of questions. The right question, open windows. I consider that questions are such a simple but powerful tool. Asking the right questions. What are the possibilities? What are the opportunities? Instead, if you ask questions like, how can we defend from this competitor? Well, this is the wrong question. So instead, if you ask questions such as, how can we add more value to this customer? This is a much more adequate question.
Yes. Oh, thank you so far. Let's make a short break.
Thank
you. Okay. So we see somehow clearly there's a fear in this. But when we look at companies, we look mainly at adults. About our education system creates already the fear. So in the company, normally the employee comes already trained to live with the fear.
Yes.
What is your idea how we should change education, or even now when we all talk about different times are coming? What you mentioned a little bit with the creativity, what are the future skills where we should focus on?
Well, in education, I think that a very fundamental skill is creativity, and creativity leads to innovation. In most of the business schools that I teach, I feel that there is a module that is missing, that I don't see that the students are taught creative techniques. Everyone can be creative, and you can be creative in the business field. How you do this? Well, there are a few points that you have to avoid. Let's see what you have to avoid. First of all, you have to avoid is conformity. This means thinking like everyone else and accepting the assumptions that are in a society already ingrained. So this means that try adopt an explorative attitude. This means that you try to look for alternative ways. So a good question to ask is, how can I do things in a different way? Or how can I do things in a more simple way? Or how can I do things with a much bigger social impact? These are good questions. The other point is understanding that creativity is a process that implies in some cases, the ideas that are half-baked means that they're not fully developed. In some cases, it's an idea that need a lot of work and need to be developed much more accurately, and you need patience because it's an endeavor that implies in some cases trial and errors, testing, reverting some things, adjusting some other things. So this means that for anxious people, it's important to adapt themselves and adopt an attitude of patience. So creativity implies patience, tolerance to risk, but also avoiding conformity, and also implies also harnessing your own skills. People believe that artists are only the creative or some successful entrepreneurs. Anyone can be creative. You can be creative in a conversation. You can be creative developing a business plan. So trusting your own creativity is innate in any human being. In some cases, it's not tapped fully or it's untapped, and it's important to trust your own creativity. And also, from the viewpoint of a company, encouraging an environment where creativity is allowed. For example, some companies, as you surely know, like Google, allow employees to devote 30% of the time or 20% of the time, in the case of RM, that employees can think about the project without pressure, in a creative way, looking for alternative ways of considering a project. And this brought about new product, new business model. So if the company is only strictly focused on their agenda, this means meeting the objective, paying the bills, looking for more customers, and don't allow what we call a creative endeavor, means, for example, some meetings where people can brainstorm, they can talk to one another without censoring, without judgment, expose ideas that might look a bit crazy, but then this can be analyzed later on in a much more rational way. Well, if they don't allow this type of event, for example, brainstorming event and others, well, the company will go always in a traditional way. And companies that go in the traditional way, we saw some example in the past. What is the company that I remember in the past that was very popular? Blockbuster. What was this company now? Disappeared and was very successful worldwide. This company in practice didn't take the chance to become the new generation like Netflix of downstreaming and so on. And obviously they got attached and stuck to their business model. So everything should be evolving over time, and companies should do so because technology evolves, customers have more requirements, the market change, and so if companies remain the same, sooner or later they will die. They will be out of the market. There is a famous book called Innovation or Die.
There is another point, because there's just with creativity, and I believe you know something more what you're not, at least I don't get it really out of this. Because if I think in conspiracy theories, I can so be creative and see more problems and dangers and shit and everything. So for the wrong sides, why I can lose, I can be very creative having new shitty ideas. But what you mean is not just simply the creativity, there must be something underneath. And when you mention Blockbuster, I think the main problem with Blockbuster is they didn't get really the idea in which business they are. They were thinking we are in the business of video cassettes and not in the business of how can our customers see the film.
Yes, entertainment. Yeah.
If you have the wrong perception of your business, you can't think about the other ideas.
Yes, I agree. We call this marketing myopia. So marketing myopia is when you don't see your sector clearly. And in practice, you are very limited to the type of activity that you always develop. And this is also, in some cases, out of fear. People don't want to change so much, most people, and they remain the same way because they don't want to evolve. The same happened with companies. Blockbuster was very complacent with their activities and their successful business model. And in practice, they couldn't predict the future, and they couldn't even shape the future. And they were remaining the same way for years. And obviously, companies like Netflix were outpacing this company very easily.
When you say now, see the future or shape the future, so for creativity in this way, you say, is there underneath the desire to shape? Like Steve Jobs says, I want to have in the universe or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, because creativity implies producing something new that didn't exist. So in practice, you are shaping the future. Every time that someone is creative, you are shaping the future. You are shaping the present and impacting the future. In some cases, with very long-term consequences. But you mentioned also that creativity could be used for good or for bad. Like any tool, cooperation can be used also for good or for bad. You can cooperate with your colleagues to slander another colleague, but also you can cooperate with your colleague to help other colleagues. Like any tool, my perspective is that obviously with a positive objective, also to bring about positive result, creativity to bring about more value for all stakeholders, not only for customers, but for all stakeholders with a social view.
So coming back to how to teach or education, creativity, but so how do we get it?
The skills. Creativity is, well, for example, a student at higher education or any type of education level should be taught creative techniques. So some authors like Edward de Bono and others wrote very interesting book, Lateral Thinking and others, that discuss all the variants of creativity, different techniques, very practical techniques, very easy to use, like lateral thinking and so on. But also another important skill that is very relevant for the current world and the future world is empathy and compassion. So we have to remind people, or in some cases to teach them or make them remember, reminding them of the importance of compassion and empathy that are very important.
In this trust that I'm allowed to say what I think and feel, or that the employees have a lot of fear. If I really think maybe I get fired or get also that why they're holding back. Is it only because they didn't learn the technique, or they're all full of fear?
Yeah, the fear, compassion and fear are related in a very inverse manner. So when you are fearful, you cannot feel compassion for others, and you cannot even feel compassion for yourself, what we call self-compassion. Compassion in simple ways is understanding that all people, all human beings in the business world and outside it, face difficulties, face challenges, and suffer from these challenges. So a compassionate person tries to understand and connect to these people that are facing difficulties and try to help them whenever possible in the best way possible. When people are fearful, they are focusing on their own fear. It's difficult to connect to others that are suffering. So, for example, an employee that has some problem with the family, they are facing challenges. A boss that is compassionate will talk to this employee, will address this issue, will have a one-to-one meeting, will keep this employee apart in a private way, will have a very nice conversation without time limit. Let's say, can talk 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, whenever necessary, and then they will try to sort out together a solution for them, for example, to address their family issues, and also having, for example, flexible time, or for example, not going to work Sunday during the week, because this boss understand that anyone, including themselves, can face this type of difficulties. So we understand that we have a common humanity. This means that suffering affects us all, and also we understand that as humans, we are also here to help one another, and helping one another is also helping ourselves, because we strengthen the relationship with this person. We are interdependent with this person, and we also need them and they need us. So this is a win-win. We help them, the relationship is strengthened, they trust us more, trust built, and also the communication and the relationship flow much more effortlessly.
It is a little bit, again, like in a healthy family, you take care about everybody who has a problem, that you can also be a 100% partner again in whatever it is.
Exactly. I in my second edition that is coming out this year, I included some example of professional acting in the healthcare sector, and what some research observed that some doctors in hospitals and clinics, they don't take 1 minute to talk to the patient about their human needs, not about their illness, about their fears, about their emotion that can be pressurizing them, and about their probably bad thoughts. They're focusing only on solving the problem, helping them get rid of the illness or disease. They don't connect on a human level. And many researchers observe that only 1 minute of connection to talk about personal issues will be enough for this patient to feel at ease, lowering their stress, and they will need less anesthetics, they will need less calming pills, because they will feel contained, they will feel taken care of by this profession.
And we know that most of the problems, sickness, are coming because they have a personal issue.
Exactly.
So it's even if they think we only take care of the sickness, they're totally wrong. Now we have this idea. We know that it could or should be better. What is your experience? How much you can turn around an old traditional company, or do we better just create new? Like the saying is, never fight an old system. Yeah.
You can convert companies. You can convert companies, so you can see some alchemic transformations. You can see alchemy when you apply this principle. My book is only about principle. They don't bring about any strategy. Principle. But principles are fundamental because they are timeless. They are perennial. I give you an example, very easy to apply a tip that many companies use, and many of the listeners can use too in their own company, regardless of the position that they have. So being more generous, there is a lot of research on this. Being more generous bring about a better workplace, more productivity, more efficiency, more creativity, better result, a stronger relationship. How does it work? Because when you are being more generous, you focus on the other person. You're not generous with yourself, you are generous with the other person. And how can you be more generous? Very simple. Two main ways to be more generous are offering others tangible things. For example, a boss offering a bonus to the employee could be an example of generosity. But the most important thing to be generous are intangible. For example, offering an ear, listening to them, offering technical advice, offering mentoring, offering coaching, offering, for example, some advice, or for example, how to look for a training course, or so on. So giving thanks to people, being grateful, giving recognition. These are all intangible and don't cost any money. Take a bit of time to do this, but the results that you get from this act of generosity are enormous. So this means that generosity brings about generosity, and the opposite happens. Stinginess brings about stinginess. So you see companies that are very generous. An example of a company that is utterly generous is Google. Google is very successful. We can agree that it's very successful, growing over the years. And what they give away? They give away Google Maps, they give away Google Translate, they give away or Google Scholar, and so on, Google Docs. They're giving away because they think from the prosperity mindset perspective. They don't think from the scarcity mindset. They know that when they give, this generates what we call an imbalance in the receiver, and the receiver feel compelled to reciprocate. This means that, again, the principle of reciprocity. When you give others, sooner or later, this person might feel compelled, naturally compelled, to give back to you or to others. So the idea is that generosity brings about more generosity.
They were built already on the principles. I wonder, well, what is your experience? When you said with the generous, I start to open up and change maybe my belief that there are even good chances to change a company bottom up. If on the bottom level, employees start to be more generous, maybe. So far, I see more if you get a new CEO who has a different idea, then the change is more top-down.
Yes, could be top-down, could be bottom-up or top-down, but depending how you want to approach this. But I see that in any way, the company can improve, providing that there is a minimum number of people that are willing to make the change. If you have top-down, will be that you have to look for a leader that obviously support this principle, that is empathetic, that is compassionate, that is inclusive, that also appreciate diversity. And there are many business leaders, especially in the new generations, that you see that they're open to all these principles. These principles are called the feminine principle. This means that principles that are trying to build relationships. They don't focus only on the hard aspect of business, profit, market share, and so on, but they focus on the soft aspect of business. They're not so soft, like a relationship, building bonds, creating loyalty, commitment. obviously, the business leader is obviously compassionate, will set up an example. And obviously, I include in the new book a new appendix on compassionate leadership, and implies that the leader is the model to be emulated. We take this as an example. In some cases, the leader are the bad example, and people tend to act in a careless way because they say, oh, if the leader is acting in the careless way, why we will care? So, but the good leader, top-down, works well.
Yeah.
The leader is giving an example and also helping people to express their views. Shouldn't be also the leader, this pace setter, that only giving command, but also open to views. What is your opinion? Well, can we discuss in a group? So in some cases, the leader has obviously the vision, the passion, and so on, but also open to new ideas. Also, the leader should be humble. This means willing to learn even from the janitor or the lowest one in the rank. So always open to new ideas.
So that means also it needs to have a kind of, let's say, advanced conscious level.
You have to get an, yes, of course. Conscious level should be a conscious level that is not focused on me defending myself and also making others lose, but also understanding that everyone should win. We are all connected. We need each other. We can evolve all together as an individual and as a company. And the only way to do this is by building a strong relationship and meeting each other's needs. Yes, it's a higher level of consciousness.
You are consulting now for let's say, simple 20 years.
Yes.
Do you see a change in the market? That more companies going in this direction?
Yes, I see a change. I see a change in my consultancy activities, for example, because in the past, training companies on this topic would have been very difficult to offer, to be accepted by the companies. However, nowadays, in the last few years, I see that companies are more open to some aspect like a mindfulness or compassion, or, for example, building a strong relationship, because they see that the whole paradigm that they used in the past is a bit obsolete. It's not of value any longer, and they see that sooner or later the shift will be affecting most of the company. Maybe in 10 years' time, all companies will be acting in a compassionate way. I think that we are in a period of transition. Some companies are in the traditional business model, and some companies are still with a new model.
Do you see it? It's like they realize that it's not working in the company, or do they realize, is this really what we're doing? Why we live here? What is the meaning of life? And that's why we should run the companies different?
In my opinion, the cases that I saw personally are companies that have tried everything in the traditional way. They have tried different strategy, different consultants, different business models, and they didn't try to focus on the most important factor, that is relationship. So because of these failing activities, these failures, companies look for something else. And also they are open, lastly, to see other views. But most companies that haven't suffered from this failure frequently are still a bit stubborn. They try to see, okay, maybe we have to change the product, or maybe we have to, no, it's not about relation. Maybe we have to change the business model, or maybe the objective were too optimistic. They don't understand that it's about the relationship, because with good relationship, you can have better business model, better objective, better market share, and so on, and better business share at all. But the idea is that they focus on the wrong aspect, that is, as I mentioned, quantitative aspect. Quantitative aspects are the natural result of the development of good qualitative aspects.
Yeah. So like Lalouche, reinventing organizations is not really in every...
Lalouche, I read Lalouche, has the different stages of the organization. The book is interesting. Well, we're talking about the latest stage of the organization, that is obviously the most evolved. The company has a purpose, the company wants to bring about an impact. Well, this book is interesting. I read the full book, and it's interesting, but what happened? The book also gives you the evolution. There are some
Lalouche is not giving really, he can't consult, he just collected examples. Yeah.
Yes. They give you stages of the organization, but in practice, we see that there's some...
Is this idea in your, what is it, client base Do they know about it? They think about it?
No, I haven't heard any client talking about this author, but obviously they know that there could be other ways because they have tried almost everything. And you know, when people feel defeated many times, they say, okay, well, you know what? Maybe we give a go. I give you an example. For example, recently I trained some companies on mindfulness. Mindfulness in the workplace, so very focused on the workplace. And they were a bit like skeptical. I said, are you sure about this? Well, shouldn't be focused on productivity. Shouldn't be focused on time management. I said this. When you're mindful, you will manage your time better. You will be more productive. You will have some colleague cooperating. So it's the wrong focus. The old business model, I like that you made me think a lot. So the old model has the wrong focus. It's the wrong focus. It's focusing on things that are connected to the economic aspect. Obviously, we know that companies are not doing charity. But if you're focusing on the wrong aspects, instead of focusing on the core, the building brick that is the human being, the relationship, nurturing this relationship, because these are meta assets. Meta asset means assets that generate other assets. Well, you're focusing on the wrong thing if you focus on only objective, business plan, strategy, and so on. Am I clear?
Yeah. So we need to be mindful with the time also and coming to an end. So I hope, or maybe just one short, because we have only a minute, the young generation, how are they changing CEOs to think different because they don't get them with the old ideas? They not want to fit in and just work them 40 years now like the old level with not getting the attention. Is there a kind of pressure? In Germany, I feel there's a kind of pressure that CEO think, oh, we need to do something different. We don't get them otherwise.
Well, the new generation, I cannot generalize, but you see many members of the new generations, the millennials and others, that they are very impatient. So they have a very short attention span. And some of the things that we're talking about, compassion, empathy, care, support, they imply a medium and long-term approach. This means that you're building relationship not only for 1 minute, for 1 day. You're building relationship for months and years. So this means that I feel even we have this generation that have very amazing characteristics, for example, much more socially oriented, aware of the environment and so on. They have a bit of short attention of span, and this means that also implies that they're a bit impatient, and also they might be changing their views very easily. And what I feel that also when training this generation, training these CEOs, we should be aware of highlighting the importance of patience, the importance of things that take time. Building a good relationship takes time.
So that is the other way around what they need to learn. It's not really
They need to learn. Yeah, they need to learn.
Thank you. Time is over. And unfortunately, we're very interesting, went very fast. Thank you, Dr. Cignacco-Fulfil. Thank you very much. And if it's okay, we come back. And how you are reachable, we will put your email address and LinkedIn profile here in the YouTube as well, so that people can contact you. Is okay?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Super. Then I thank you, and dear listener, I hope you're inspired and inspired to win. But win is only possible if you're ready to win. Thank you. This was another episode of Winspiration, Wisdom and Information to support you getting out of illusions, false identifications, limiting beliefs. We all have the power and potential to be more, do more, have more, give more. Reality is what is possible in the universe, and the best is yet to come. If you want to dive deeper into possibilities of creating the extraordinary future, go to winspiration.global or to wolfgangsonnenburg.com. More information and some free downloads like the email program Dream Goals Reality or a copy of the book The Best Is Yet to Come can be found on the UK Health Radio website under the Listen on Demand and Presenters section. Join us again next week on the Winspiration Show for more wisdom and information to create your extraordinary future.